Be mad at me because I'm going to be doing this. But I don't do the glue class here very often, so he's taking advantage of me, which is fine. I'm used to it. Okay. So, first of all, forget what you think you know about glue pulling. Okay?
Don't know things that were good.
Good. You know, let me tell you a couple of things about glue pulling. Is first of all, it is an absolute necessity in our industry. Okay? For years and years and years, we didn't have it. We didn't know what it was. It was non-existent. You know, a lot of technicians that got started back into the 80s and 90s, we didn't have glue pulling. Of course, we didn't need it to near the extent that we have to have it now. And a lot of you are asking, okay, so why is it so important now? Well, the reason is there are actually parts of a vehicle that no matter what, you cannot put a tool on. Most important one, and the most obvious one, is the roof rail. The area between the doors and the roof, that rail up there is a double wall, completely seamed in panel. You cannot put a tool in it, period. There are a couple of models out there that has minute amount of access. Back, some of the SUVs, I think one of the Jeeps has a little bit of access from the back end up inside, but that's the extent of it. They're all glue pull, they're all double wall. So you have to be able to glue pull if you run into damage up there. A typical door ding guy, very rare that you're gonna run into situations where you're maybe working on a rail. A hail guy, you're gonna run into it all the time. Every job, practically, you've got dents on the rail, so it's going to happen. So again, the guys are thinking, well, I'm never gonna do hail, I'm only gonna do door dings. How does that benefit me? It's gonna benefit you tremendously. Because there's a lot of times, like with big damage and some significant size dents, I'll use a combo of glue pulling and pushing. You know, to help, I can pull a dent up considerably, then finish it off by pushing. Which brings me to, would you rather push or pull? If you ever run, and I go out on a limb and I'm on camera and I'm gonna say it anyway, if you ever run into the technician that says, oh, I'd rather glue pull than I would push, either he's lying or he doesn't know how to push, because that's not the case, okay? We would always rather push a dent before we had to pull one, okay? Typically, it's faster. Typically, you're more accurate. Various different reasons here, but I will always push one given the opportunity before pulling. There are times that I will choose to glue pull one. You know, let's say I've got a quarter panel that's got one small dime or nickel sized dent in it. It's pretty shallow. I know I can glue pull it, no big deal at all. But the only way I can put a tool onto it is I've got to drop the bumper and pull the tail light out. Mm-hmm. Why go to all that trouble if I can just stick a glue tab on it real quick, pop it out, tap it down, I'm done. I go on to the next one. So in those situations, I'll choose to glue pull it. Okay. Couple of things you need to know about glue pulling is, can you damage the paint with glue? Of course you can, okay? It is, you know, a problem that you can run into. Now, I will tell you that a factory applied paint job will always adhere to a surface better than an aftermarket applied paint job. I don't care who painted it. I don't care if it's Chip Booth, one of the Tuttles. I don't care who it is. You know, pick the guy that you are online watching their TV and you think he's the greatest painter on the planet. He may be, but the factory applied electrostatically charged paint will always adhere better. Now, that's not to say you can't pull factory paint either, but just know it will adhere better. Okay, so if you run into a panel that has been repainted, I'm not telling you not to pull it, I'm just telling you to be very, very cautious with it. Okay, because you don't know who painted it, you don't know the quality of the paint they use, you don't know the quality of the clear, you don't know how well they prepped the panel, treated the panel, you don't know if they just blended into it or did they strip it down to bare metal and treat it correctly.
Maybe they caught the clock paint, right?
I'm sorry?
Maybe the top clock paint.
Kirsch, absolutely, which is a good point. If you have paint that is compromised, if it's cracked, if it's got a chip in it, if there's a scratch in it, don't pull it. You're gonna pull the paint off, okay? That's a given. 99% of the time, if you put a tab on a paint chip or something that has cracked paint, you're going to pull the paint off. I promise you, you're gonna do it. okay? So, that, like I said, that's something that you just want to take into consideration and be very careful with. And if you're curious, if you do pull paint, typically what you pull is, let's say I'm using a tab that size, okay? And I pull paint with the pull that I make with this tab, the amount of paint that I'm gonna pull is pretty much the same diameter as that tab. So you're gonna end up with a nice little round right off of it.
Now, is there a method for testing the durability of the paint if there's no noticeable chips, cracks?
About the only thing that you can genuinely test for would be Bondo. And obviously if you have a panel that's got some Bondo in it, or any filler at all, stay away from it, don't pull it, period, because you're just gonna pull the Bondo out and you're gonna have a world of mess on your hands, and the vehicle's going to the body shop and you get to eat the cost. So that being said, so there's really nothing you can do. One thing that does help you with it, and there's been debates in the industry for years and years and years as to if this makes a difference in the glue pull itself or just the pulling of the paint, and that is making sure that your glue sticks to the surface, and when you make the pull, the tab comes off the glue, okay? What you can do to help facilitate that happening is making sure you have to make sure your panel is clean. You wipe it down with alcohol before you make any pulls. That's going to help the glue adhere to the panel better. Now, why making sure the glue sticks to the panel and not to the tab? Why does it make a difference? Think about it logically. If the glue comes off with the tab, you're separating from the paint, okay? If the glue stays on the paint and the tab comes off the glue, you're less likely to pull the paint off because you're not removing the glue from the paint, okay? Does it make a difference in the pull itself? Not really. It doesn't really factor into it. However, it will help minimize your chance of actually pulling the paint off as long as that glue stays to the panel like it should. Okay, so where did glue pulling come from? Started for the most part in Germany. German engineers, manufacturers made the very first glue pulling tabs and puller, and that was the Roth tool company. They still make a lot of body shop stuff today. Some small red tabs, and forgive me, I don't have any with me. There were small round red tabs. We basically had 3 different sizes of tabs, which were basically copies of this tab here, and I'll pass them down. That basically looks like the original tab, okay? In 3 different sizes. We basically had a dime, a nickel, and a quarter roughly sized tab. The original ones were slightly more convexed, and they were very, very stiff, had no flexibility built to them whatsoever, adhered to the glue very, very well. What we all ran into for the most part was what we call volcanoing, which was you'd make a pull in the dent, and as you made that pull, the depth of the dent would basically stay there, and it would pull everything up around the outside of it. So it'd make a little volcano, okay? And that's what we were used to. We would do that, we would tap down, pull it again. And it would shrink down a little bit. We'd tap it out, pull it again. And that's typically the way it worked. And you know how I've told several of y'all, we've talked about how, doing a bowl, working on a bowl is a whole lot easier to work than a cup. And that's what was happening. It would make a cup every time we pulled it, so we tap it out. And every time we tapped it out, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller. So why did it do it? We didn't have a clue. We didn't know it should do anything else. We hoped it would do something else. We hoped that bottom would invert and pop the dent, pull the dent up, invert it into a nice little dome where we can just go back in then and tap it down nice and level. About 5-6 years ago, there was some development in the glue industry that really started bringing us to where we are today. I'm in a very fortunate, very super cool situation where I actually product test for one of the main tool distributors in the world, let alone in the country. And I product test every one of the glues and every one of the tabs before they ever hit the market. Plus their regular tools, but I test all of the glue stuff. And what happened was they actually brought me 4 tabs, okay? Identical tabs. They all look exactly the same, 4 different colors. The 4 colors represented 4 distinctively different plastics. We're like, huh, wait a minute. So I started testing them, and I immediately ruled one of them out because one of them didn't stick. It just didn't adhere to the glue very well, right? Okay, that one's out. And just for curiosity, there was a dark blue, a light blue, a pink, and a green one, okay? The blue one, the dark blue one was out. Just didn't work very well. The pink one, was better. Moderately better, but nothing really special. Overall, the green one made a really significant pull. All of a sudden, the volcanoing stopped. For the most part, it would still happen every once in a while. It's still bent metal, let's face it. But for the most part, the volcanoing was stopping. And I'm like, why is the volcanoing stopping? Wait a minute, Lee, get your brain working. What's going on? The plastic was allowing the face to flex. And basically, and this is so, once we figured it out, it was so logical and so much common sense, but it never occurred to anybody until these tabs came around that what was going on is the thought process is you take this tab, it's got a nice rounded dome, it's convex, you stick it down into the dent, it conforms to the bottom of the dent, sticks to it, you pull it up, it's gonna pull the bottom of the dent up, right? Wrong answer. It was pulling everything up evenly. The thinner tabs that were developed with flexibility in the plastic was allowing the center of the tab, to pull up more than the outer edge, which inverted the dent.
That makes sense.
Boom. That's the granddaddy of all the current tabs that are on the market. The sad part about it is, and nobody on the planet knows about this other than my students, and that is that light blue one. And this is just a side note because it breaks my heart. It truly does. That light blue one that I mentioned is the finest pulling tab no one has ever used but me. And the reason being is it was amazing. It makes the perfect pull almost every single time. But I'd get 2 pulls out of them and every one of them would break.
Oh, shit.
It had a very, very bad attrition rate on the type. It's because of the type of plastic. And literally I'd get 2, maybe 3 pulls out of every one of them, and every one of them, the face would shatter and break. So needless to say, they couldn't sell them because there was too much breakage for the market. And I happen to have every one that's left. I have a gallon-sized Ziploc bag that's stuffed full of them, and I have every one that was ever made that's still in existence. But it was sad. It just really was. But there's so many different tabs out there on the market these days. There's smooth face ones, things like this. These different ones, if you want to pass those around. Different smooth face tabs. And also, let me tell you something real quick about smooth face tabs. The misconception when smooth face tabs first came out, everybody was like, oh, we got to scuff them up and hit them with sand. No, don't do that. They're smooth for a reason. Use them the way they come. They're designed to be that way, okay? Don't be that guy that thinks they have to soak them in alcohol for days and then scuff them up with sandpaper. Leave it alone. Just use them the way they're designed. Tabs are very, a lot of times like tools, tabs can be very personal. I can tell you what my favorite tabs are. The burrow compression tabs, which look like this. This is one of my favorite ones, especially when I need a nice smooth pull. Don't necessarily need the monster pull, but I need a nice smooth, nice invert. That's my favorite go-to. When I want something a little bit stronger, I'll go to the clear tequilas, or now the brand new root beer 2.0s that just came out are just phenomenal. That's these. That's the new root beer 2.0 that just came out. So it's very personal. I mean, there's tabs out there that I love. There's tabs out there that I've used before that I like, but there's ones that are better. So the point for me telling you this, the difference in the tabs, We have a nice large selection of tabs here. So while you're glue pulling, while you're here, try different tabs, try different ones that we've got, different styles, different brands. And then when you get out there in the world, the real world, and you're trying different things, test different ones. You'll find ones that you like better than others, okay? Like I said, I can tell you my favorite ones all day long. James can tell you his, and they're gonna work for you, but you may also like, just the way something pulls, because we all do things a little bit differently. So let's talk about glues for a second. So let me show you something here, because this isn't.
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This must be changes after 2 years or 3 years or.
In case you ever break it, you can keep using it. They use them over and over and over again. They are plastic, obviously, so you will break one every once in a while. As far as breakage goes, you tend to break more during the winter time, because it's plastic. It gets more brittle during the wintertime compared to the summertime. But you can use them over and over again. Also, when you get residue on them, if you just have a little bit of residue like that, don't worry about it. As soon as I put fresh hot glue on that, it's going to remelt into it. You don't have to worry about it. If you have a big chunk of glue that's stuck on there, yeah, scrape that off, pop that off. But as far as just a little bit of residue, don't worry about it. It's not going to interfere anything. It's not going to hinder anything. As soon as I put 280 degree hot glue on that, that's going to remelt. Which, by the way, that's approximately the temperature range that glue comes out of those guns, is depending on your gun, between 280 and 320 degrees. It'll burn the crap out of you. Just FYI. So be careful with it, all right? And I speak from experience. I have burned myself on numerous occasions. Some of it's stupid, some of it just accidental. It happens.
That's the reason why it's called a hot glue gun.
This is absolutely. Okay. And speaking of that, in all seriousness though, if you have a dual temperature glue gun, make sure you're running it on high temperature. Don't run it on the low temp. These glues are designed as high temperature glues. They will not be at their optimal operating temperature on a low setting. Okay? So make sure you're running them hot. Okay, so for years, I've had guys in the industry, I just use the cheap Walmart stuff, or I use the cheap Ace Hardware plain glue. I can buy a 50-pound box of it for 20 bucks. Well, go ahead, Sparky. While you're wasting your time and it's taking you 3 days to glue pull that rail, I'm using the real stuff and I'm done in 30 minutes. Okay? This is just part of the rainbow of different glues. Okay? In your packet that James gave you all yesterday or last week, depending on who you are, there is a sheet in there that has a temperature range. There's also I believe it's a 2-page glue pulling instruction guide in there, okay? That is a very good guide, and I'm blowing sunshine up my own rear end right now when I say it's a very good guide, because I wrote it, okay? But everything that I'm getting ready to tell you and what I've already told you is in that. It's like I said, it's a very brief description. It's only 2 pages, but it's a great reference guide. The 280 degree thing that I mentioned, everything about the different glues, when you use a slide hammer and how the pull of a slide hammer differs from a mini lifter, all these things that we're going to address is in that quick guide, okay? So there's that form, and I think James is trying to grab me one, but the form that's in the paperwork that y'all had is a temperature range chart. Thank you, sir. So this actually is missing a couple of glues that I'll tell you about, but for the most part, this is most of the glues that are out on the market, okay? And
Thank you.
these are the names of them. Obviously, they're color coded as well. The colors, it's not just to make them look pretty. It's not just to sell more glues for the glue manufacturers. They're all the same, they just color them different. No, it's not true. Each one of them has a different strength, different temperature range. Because what you're gonna find out, and why you're getting ready to find it out, I'm getting ready to tell you, everything you're gonna do in glue pulling is all ambient temperature related, okay? Besides the dent itself, that's the obvious factor. But it's all about your temperature and your ambient temperature, okay? Ambient temperature, if you don't know, is the relation of air temperature mixed with humidity, okay? And the weather factors. So ambient temperature takes into consideration, well, it's 80 degrees outside, but I've got a 30% humidity compared to 90% humidity, and you know, I've got a little bit of a dry breeze. So it takes all of those things into consideration. So if you look at this sheet, I'll give you an example, the Gold Rush. This is one of my favorite ones to use as an example because it's so blatant. It says high strength, warm to hot. What the chart doesn't tell you is, yes, those are all correct. High strength, warm to hot. And as far as hot goes, it'll handle temperatures up into the hundreds. 105, 110, 120. But here's the difference. If you're working a hailstorm, or you have a shop in Houston, Texas, and it's 105 degrees with 98% humidity, don't even try it. It's not gonna work. Why? Gold Rush does not handle humidity. Doesn't do it. If you're gonna work a hailstorm in Phoenix, Arizona, or Sedona in July, and it's 125 degrees, but you got 12% humidity, take as much of this stuff as you can possibly carry. It's gonna work, okay? Where, okay, the guy that just went to Houston needs to take the Orange Fire. The Orange Fire is going to be that high temperature, high humidity, high strength. So you've got all these different variables. Here in sunny, balmy Southern California, I can pretty much use whatever I want to, you know. Well, I wouldn't use the Gold Rush. I mean, here, honestly, I would probably be using, summertime, I'm probably going to use Extreme Purple. Most of the rest of the year, I'm going to use probably a Glue Trax. Just because the Glue Trax has a lot of flexibility built into it and really helps with the inversion of that dent. It really inverts it nicely.
My country is above 150.
Mm-hmm. Well, with those temperatures,
Above 50 degrees.
yeah, I know. You're going to have, you would have trouble glue pulling at that high of a temperature, no matter what you use. But Gold Rush or the Orange Fire would probably be the only, well, you might even be able to pull off
But my
root beer.
center is 23. Because there is a AC inside.
If it's AC, it's controlled.
Yeah.
Chances are humidity level's pretty low,
Between 23 to 25.
which is what, about 80?
Yeah.
About 80 degrees?
Yeah.
You can practically use anything you want. You can run Gold Rush, you could run bubble gum, the pink, green, just about any of them. The glues that we all started with.
For the hot, for the summer, exactly. Which one?
In that high of a heat, I would go Gold Rush, I would go root beer. The root beer's not on there, but I'll show you some. And the Orange Fire.
Yeah, that temperature level being so hot, you don't even need glue.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. The tab, the plastic will probably just melt to the panel. But and I can tell you this: your set time is going to take about an hour and a half. Where you and I are going to be pulling things in 15, 20 seconds. So there was a point. Thanks, appreciate it. Anyhow, the different glues are definitely dependent on where you're working. If you're working in Montana, even if it's springtime, but you're in the 50s, you know, you're going to use a different temperature than James typically uses out here. Excuse me, a different glue than James would typically use out here. But the good thing about that is because there's all these different glues, you can tailor what you're trying to do to your environment and how you're doing it, not having to adjust what you're doing, okay? So like those colder, when you're up home in Wisconsin and I get it, if you're working in your shop, you're in a controlled environment, so you've got a lot more options. But if you happen to have to do something outside and you're in that 40 to 50 degree temperature range, you're gonna want Anson White or Swiss Blue. That's gonna get you that cold temperature range. Cold temperature glues, the set time's gonna slow down. It's gonna give it a little bit more time for it to harden, where a high temperature glue, it's gonna set a little bit quicker. Yeah. The original glues that we all started with two of them on here are the original Dent Out Yellow and the original Dent Out Red, and then the original version of the Black Widow and the Cactus Green. That was it. We had 4. okay? Period. That was all we had. The dent out yellow was the cold weather glue, and you would drip more out of your gun than what we ever used because it was just so runny. The dent out red was our high temperature, high humidity. That's what we used during the summertime. And then just depending on who you were, you had your choice between the green and the black for every time else. I was one of the green guys. I preferred the cactus green over the black widow. That's just me. But we've got so many different things, just like so many more tabs today, we've got so many more glues that you can really tailor what you're doing. And it makes a world of difference. So be sure and watch your charts. And like I said, just pick what works for you. And you're also going to find if you're in an area where you can use multiple different types of glues, you can say, hey, Leo, give me a good, strong, moderate temperature range glue. Well, I can rattle off 3 or 4 different glues. Which one's better for you? Again, there's properties in those glues that you might like over another one. So try a couple of different glues. See which one fits your timing and everything better. So much of glue pulling is timing. Okay, it's also instinct of timing. I'm going to show you how to make the test pulls and how to increase your time to make a harder pull or a softer pull and things like that. But a lot of it is instinct and getting used to how metals react. Okay, and just knowing, well, okay, I'm going to have to yank the crud out of that one to get it to move. That one's really soft. Oh, it's a Subaru. I'm barely going to pull on that metal because I know it's going to, if I pull too hard, I'm going to take a dent that's this deep and I'm going to pull it up that high. Yeah. It's super soft metal. So, I mean, there's all those factors that you build into. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to test your set time. You know how we've all talked about, I know a couple of y'all haven't started the PDR side yet, but bear with me on this. You have to test your metal. Most of us have talked about that. Make that first test push to see how hard you need to push in order to get the metal to stay where you need it to be. The same thing we're tapping down. Same thing is true for glue pulling, okay? You don't want to take a dent that you only need to pull this far and pull it that far. You're just creating more work for yourself, right? So we're going to make a test pull to test the panel. It's going to tell me, well, was that enough? Okay, great. Then that's how long I need to let it set. If it pulls too much, I'm going to back my time down a little bit. Maybe make more of a wet pull. A wet pull is where the glue is still tacky. It's still soft. Or do I need to let it sit on there longer and let that glue harden a little bit more to increase the pull? How hard it's going to pull. Okay. So speaking of that, there's one more thing we need to address first, which is the tools that we use, all right? In tapping down, one failure of glue pulling is that glue pulling tends to have a problem with pulling a very, very tiny, very sharp dent. Just a failure, it's a matter of where the glue can place and hold and grab and everything. So the last thing that you want to do is pull a dent up nice and smooth and rounded. Grab your sharp tip tap down that you use most of the time when you're pushing and go tink and make this little bitty sharp divot that you can't pull back out. Or you got to open it and open it and open it and open it and open it in order to get it to pull out. So what we do is typically we want to use a little bit broader, a little bit fatter, a little bit flatter tap down. And that's just going to help you meld everything together and blend the metal back out smoothly where you're not risking making those sharp little points, okay? That's number one. Number two, slide hammer compared to a mini lifter, okay? It's an age-old discussion. Well, do I use a slide hammer or do I use a mini lifter? I don't care. I really don't. And here's why. They're two very, very different pulls, but the outcome should be the same, okay? A slide hammer, and this should kind of be common sense, is a shock pull. Just like even some of you body shop guys, you grab a slide hammer, and you bang on this slide hammer. I've got the tab hooked up right there, okay? It's a shock pull, okay? It's gonna shock that coming out. You say, well, how's the glue hold onto the tab when there's that much force involved? Well, that's how good the glues are, okay? The difference between this and a mini lifter is what's considered a static pull, okay? It's just a methodical, smooth, steady draw that realistically,
It's all control.
it's all control, realistically will just slowly try to pull that tab out of the glue. Now here's the part that does cross some of y'all's eyes sometimes. Which one pulls harder? What do you think? Everybody rattle it off. What do you think?
The same.
Slide hammer? Okay. At a point, a mini lifter will surpass the pulling power of a slide hammer. At a point, okay? And what I mean by that is, in order for comparable pulling power, I'm just pulling generic numbers out of the air, okay? 20 pounds of pull, okay? 20 pounds of pull to 20 pounds of pull. A slide hammer will make 20 pounds of pull faster and a shorter set time than a mini lifter will. Why? Because this is trying to pull the tab out of the glue. Slowly, just kind of pulls it out. The shock of the slide hammer will actually adhere to the glue better. It holds on better. I know it doesn't make sense physics-wise, but trust me, it's the truth, okay? But at a point of the set time of that glue, it gets to the point that the shock of the slide hammer actually causes the glue to release, where this is just hitting its stride, and it's actually surpassing the pulling power, and it'll pull harder, okay? So now this is a much more controlled pull, but there are times that I like to use a mini lifter. Most of the time, I'm a slide hammer guy. I prefer to use my slide hammer most of the time. But there's a lot of times that I will reach and grab for my mini lifter. You know, I love using my mini lifter. A lot of times, if I'm being the usual technician and I've got a hood on a stand like this and I got tools sitting on it and I got to make a pull and I go to do this, I'm going to pull it with my mini lifter, just because if I go up there and bang on it with my slide hammer, I got stuff flying everywhere.
Yep.
Okay? But there's also times that I'm going to do it for the sake of the pull. One place you don't want to use a mini lifter, and let me back up. It's not that you shouldn't use it. Just be careful with it, okay? If you're on that rail, roof rail of a car, truck, SUV, doesn't matter, roof rail. What you have to remember, and especially, it's not always just the roof rail, but this is the great explanation. What you have to remember with a mini lifter is you're not just making a pull to that tab when you pull that up. You're creating leverage off the feet, so you're pushing down. If you get this hooked up really good and hard, and you're on softer metal, when you make that pull, you're pushing down as well. You can actually create footprints in softer metal areas, the rails being one of them. And if you create those footprints, it can be a major pain in the tush to get those dents back out, okay? So just be careful. That's why you'll see me 99% of the time when I'm running down a rail, I'm using my slide hammer, unless I've got that one spot that's just killing me and I've just got to make a monster pull. Then I'll use my mini lifter, but I'll position the feet where they're like on the edge where it's stiffer or something along those lines, okay? Any questions so far? No? Wow. Okay, everybody awake?
Go ahead.
All right, so how do you fill a tab? And how much glue do you put on a tab? Real simple. You're gonna fill a tab to approximately 80%, okay? And what that obviously just translates to is just fill the tab. Start at the center and you're gonna just dome this up. You want a nice amount of thickness. Something right along those lines, okay? Now, when I set that, and I just randomly stuck that real quick, because I want to talk to you for a second about setting the tab. What you don't want to do is mash that tab down, okay? And the reason why you don't want to mash it is because you're then going to thin the glue out in the center of it. Your set time and your dry time of that glue will be different from the outer edge to the center of it. It's not going to pull evenly. So just lightly set it down, make sure it's flat and it's perpendicular, okay? Always make sure you are pulling your tab straight and perpendicular to the panel. And what that means, I know sometimes this sounds so juvenile and basic, but I want to make sure that you've got it. If you're working on a side panel, make sure you're perpendicular to that panel, okay? It doesn't mean perpendicular to the ground, okay, guys? Sorry, but that's just, so if I'm having to pull a dent here and I've got that little bit of an angle, I'm actually setting that tab at that angle, okay? So I'm matching the angle of the panel and the dent that I'm pulling, okay? Also, make sure you center the tab in the dent, okay? Centered over the deepest part in the center part of the dent, okay? Try to cover the dent. Now, sizing the dent and the tab, the size of the tab that you're going to be using. You never want to use a tab that's larger than the dent you're trying to pull. You want to use something comparable or slightly smaller, okay? There's exceptions to the rule, like in everything, that you're going to use maybe a much smaller tab if you've got a large dent that you're trying to move the bottom up or something like that. But relatively speaking, for the average dent, you want to go with something that's relatively the same size or slightly smaller. Okay, so if you're using roughly a nickel-sized dent, use a tab that's roughly a nickel or a little bit smaller to a dime size tab. Okay. Now, what we're going to do to make that first test pull, once I set the tab down, after about 3 seconds, the glue's still going to be sticky, but it's not going to burn you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tab, I'm going to wait about 3 or 4 seconds, and I'm going to just tap the edge of the glue. When the glue no longer is tacky to my skin, I'm going to pull it. And that's my first test pull. And that's where I'm going to look at, well, all right, what did it do? Did it make a pull at all? Did it pull a whole bunch? Did it pull nothing? And then I'm going to adjust accordingly. As we increase our set time, you're going to increase your pull, the amount that you're pulling, okay? And those increases are in seconds. It's not minutes. You are not going to set a glue tab down, go to the bathroom, go have a cigarette, make a phone call, and then come back and pull it 20 minutes later. If you do, you're going to do something wrong, period. Usually it's going to be pull the paint off. Unless you're in a really cold weather situation and the glue just gets brittle and just pops off and it does nothing. But for the most part, you're going to do some serious damage, okay? So, and get used to spider webs because your glue is a spider web all over you, and it's really annoying. Okay, so like I said, I just barely flattened it, made sure it's upright and perpendicular. Now I'm touching that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and slide hammer this one since I don't have anything on this hood. You see how that's still sticking to my finger? And this is the root beer glue. This root beer glue is a good all-around temperature. You can use it up into the high temperatures. I will tell you though, this is probably the strongest PDR glue on the market. When I have to make some monster pulls on some big damage, this is my go-to. Okay, so that's no longer tacky to my skin anymore. Popped it off.
Cool.
Yeah, 91%, thank you sir, 91% rubbing alcohol. That's all you need. A little drop or two, wipes right off. Well, nice smooth little dome. Now granted there wasn't a dent under there, but it made a nice smooth little dome. Okay, so if y'all are curious, considering how long that one's been on there, if you want to see what that's going to do. Now, when you adjust with a mini lifter, you're not using the adjustment, and this one I can either rotate the handle or the cap, which is the same as like the Dinking mini lifter. There's the adjustment here. You're not actually pulling the tab up with that, you're just snugging it. And the only reason why you're doing that is make sure you're getting a full pull. So just snug the carriage here up to the tab to get a full pull. Love it when they sound like a 22 going off. one, you're gonna go. Well, I'll just let you do it. How's that look? I'd say I probably overpulled it.
Someone's got some tapping to do.
Yep. Yep. Sure does. So that's the reason why you don't want to overpull, because then you've got to tap all that back down. So you would just be creating more damage for yourself. So let's actually look at, Javier, would you grab me that dent ball real quick, that little red dent maker? So let me actually make a dent right here, and I'll show you how to center it and set it in the tab. You know, one of the cool things about glue pulling is you don't have to worry about bracing. You know, you don't have to worry about taking the car apart. You're just working from the outside surface. So a lot of times it makes it so much simpler as to what we're doing. So, just a small dent right there. So let's see here. What do I want to use? What do y'all think? That look like a good shot right there?
It's pretty comparable.
Just a hair smaller. You can see a little bit of taper around the outside, so that should work out really well. Okay, so when I made that pull a minute ago, I know that first set time that I tested where it was still sticking to my finger made a significant pull. Made a nice smooth pull. So that's sitting in the back of my mind for when I make the pull on this one. Now I am going to switch. That one I pulled with a slide hammer. So I'm going to switch and use a mini lifter on this one. So, which basically what that's going to translate into, if I were to pull at the exact same second, now granted I've got a little bit smaller tab, so the less amount of glue that I have in here is actually going to cut my set time down a little bit. The more glue, the longer the set time, because you have more heat because there's more glue. Okay? Correct. So I'm actually going to pull this one a little bit quicker than I did the other one with the slide hammer. And I'm just going to make a straight pull. And let's see what it does. This is the part that Oleg always hates, because he knows that because I'm on camera, it's going to want to mess with me. So it got most of the dent out minus a very small little bitty dimple in there. Okay, so what I was talking about with a little bit flatter, more blunt tap down is something along these lines. Of the yellow set that y'all get, one of these two, I prefer the flatter one. So I'm going to ease that back down a little bit. And now you see I've got just that little dimple left. So now the next pull I make, I'm going to go down with an even smaller tab that fits roughly the size of the damage. Now don't let this little 9mm tab fool you. You'll see what I mean here in a second.
So you're going to want to go a lot quicker with something that small.
For the most part, yeah. Because it's obviously going to harden up a little quicker. And I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to a slide hammer, because believe it or not, even though that is a very small tab, the slide hammer is actually going to get a little bit better pull on it than the mini lifter will, because of the small amount of glue that's there. Ooh, it's being stubborn. See, I told you, Oleg jinxed me. The big stuff, the big just gnarly craters that James likes to make for me on the side of a car, no problem. That never gives me a problem. It's the little bitty stuff on a hood when Oleg's filming that just totally boogers me up. Isn't that right, Oleg? Wow, just because he's holding the camera, he won't talk to me. Okay, does anybody have any questions while I'm waiting for this one to pull? Look pretty basic? Does it look pretty simple?
Yeah.
It's not.
When you're doing it, seems like when I'm doing it.
Well, and here's the good thing about glue pulling. One of the things, especially in the middle of your training, as you move forward, one of the things that glue pulling really helps you as far as your training goes. That's the pull I was wanting. It gives you a break for a moment from finding your tooltip and learning to find your tooltip and allowing you to concentrate. Yeah, there we go. Allows you to concentrate just on the use of the light, seeing the dent in the light and placing the tab down instead of having to place the light, find the dent, find your tooltip, use the light, the combination. So it'll benefit you in the long run. Yeah, that should work.
Yeah.
So,
Make it look so
shh, you might want to cut that. It was right, like I'm supposed to find it again?
Yeah.
It was right here.
He was so good he can't find his own word.
Hey, one of the best thing that can ever happen to you as a technician is you push a dent, you tap it down, you grab your tool back because you know there was something, you think there was a low there. You grab your tool and you turn back to do it, and you can't find it.
That's a good day.
If you can't find it to push that spot back up,
Walk away.
either you need to walk away because your eyes are messing with you, or it's gone. If it's gone, it's gone. There's no arguing that point. So yeah, there's nothing. As frustrating as it could be, I love it. I'll look back and go, okay, I'm good. you can't fight it. So, all right, so what we're going to do is I think James is going to pull a couple of you guys back to interior. The rest of you, I'm going to set you up on the individual hoods. We're just going to start playing with it. Try different tabs. You can try different glues. I've got 3 glue guns set up with all 3 different glues in them. See which ones you like. Like I said, we'll try different tabs. I'll make some different dents for you. At first, just make a couple of pulls on the flat surface so you can see it, and also make a couple of tap downs with that so you can get used to tapping down from glue pulling, okay? And then as we go, this afternoon, we'll make a couple of bigger dents. By the way, nobody asked the questions, so I'll tell you now, yes, you can pull body lines. Yes, you can pull creases. Obviously, they're very difficult to do, but they can be done, okay? Especially a crease, like the crease that you were working on earlier. You could have glue pulled that crease. That one was open enough, because it wasn't super, super sharp. That one would glue pull. We'd be able to pull that one up. Okay, like I said, they are difficult. They are time consuming to glue pull something like that, but sometimes it's what you have to
Is it
do.
almost always going to be a high after your pull? I mean,
Except for that 1 in 5,000 pulls that you make that you just pull it absolutely dead even perfect. And James, how often does that happen?
Yep.
How often do you actually pull a dent perfect?
I think I've had it happen 3 times out of thousands of times.
idea
Those
is
3
to
times,
have
I
a-
looked back at the panel and I was trying to, I was second guessing myself whether or not I had a dent there to begin with.
Right.
Maybe the dent wasn't here, maybe it was on the side.
Exactly.
but the idea is to
Always pull, yeah, you always want to pull it up a little, just like in pushing. You always want to pull it up a little bit high and then tap it down. It's going to give you the much better preferred outcome. Now, not with glue, but with pushing, you're going to get to a point in your career that you will push things relatively flat and relatively even, kind of without trying. I mean, I do that nowadays a lot. I know James does too. But what we tell you is when you, in your pushing career, you are at the slowest point in your career right this second, period. Trying to push level will do nothing but slow you down. Don't do something that's going to intentionally slow you down. So push it up a little bit past level, tap it down, go on to the next one. You know, you sit there and fight and struggle to try to push it level. Oh God, I want to get it right there so I don't have to worry about tapping it down. I hate tapping down. Nobody likes tapping down. I don't want to tap it down. Push the damn thing a little high and tap it down. Don't do that to yourself, okay? So yeah, yes, the goal is slight dome, tap it down, go to the next one. That simple. Cool. You didn't do it. What are you patting yourself for? All right, guys. My pleasure. Huh?